Welcome to the Faith and Gratitude Speaker Series, an educational program designed to bring you new insights on cancer wellness. We focus on practitioners and specialists that have an integrative, holistic approach to treating cancer and want you to have the opportunity to hear their views firsthand. The series is part of our ongoing commitment to providing empowerment and education to cancer patients during treatment and beyond. Today, Chris Wark, patient advocate and author of the best-selling book Chris Beat Cancer, will join us to share his journey after he was diagnosed with cancer back in 2003. His story is one of faith, courage, and determination as he made radical lifestyle changes to beat cancer.
Hi, my name is Chris Wark, and I'm an 18-year cancer survivor, and I'm really excited to be a part of the Faith and Gratitude event and share my story with you and hopefully inspire you and encourage you that by the end of this talk, you will realize how much power that you have to change your life and to change your future. So let's go back to December 2003. I was 26 years old. I had been married for 2 years. I was in the real estate business. I was a musician. I was really excited about my life and my future. Everything seemed to be going well, but I was having some abdominal pain. And I put it off for most of the year because I'm a typical male. And eventually the pain got worse. I was hoping it would get better, and it didn't. And so I had a colonoscopy because I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And after I woke up from that procedure, they told me I had a golf ball-sized tumor in my large intestine. They sent a biopsy to the lab, called me a few days later and said, "You have colon cancer." Now, cancer is a shock at any age. I mean, it's a scary diagnosis, and the implications are pretty profound. The implication is you have a life-threatening disease. You may be dying. And when you get that kind of a diagnosis, you don't know how much time you have left. And so I was immediately terrified. The fear consumed my life and my heart, and I did not know what my future would hold. But the first verse that came to me was Romans 8:28, which says, "We know that God works all things for the good of those who love Him, who are called according to His purpose." And so that gave me a tremendous amount of hope and comfort. And I just realized, okay, this is where the rubber meets the road. I've got to put my faith in something. And so I put it in that. I don't like my situation. I don't like my circumstance. I definitely wish I didn't have cancer, but I'm going to choose to believe that God's going to work it for my good somehow, that somehow good will come out of this horrible life event, right? This horrible circumstance. So the first thing they wanted me to do is the doctors wanted me to have surgery, and they said, "We got to get you into surgery right away and get this thing out of you before it spreads and kills you." And so I had surgery on December 30th. They took out a third of my large intestine. That's where the tumor was. And when I woke up from surgery, they said, "It's worse than we thought. You're stage 3C, and that means you're going to need 9 to 12 months of chemotherapy." So things went from bad to worse. That was more disappointing news. And before the surgery, there was no talk of chemotherapy. I was told, "We're going to take this thing out of you, and you'll recover from surgery. It won't be a big deal, and you can get on with your life." And that changed to now I was facing chemotherapy, and many of us have seen what chemotherapy can do to people. It's highly destructive. It's very poisonous and toxic, and I had certainly seen people out in the world that had made impressions on me, and they were in a state of physical distress from the effects of chemotherapy. So as I thought about my life and my future, I thought, man, I don't want that to be me. You know, I don't want to do that. And I think most cancer patients don't want to do chemotherapy because they've seen what it's done to other people. But I didn't have any other option. I didn't know what else to do. And after I got home from the hospital, as I was sobering up and getting off the pain medication, I started thinking about my life and my future. And the idea of poisoning my way back to health did not make sense. And so I prayed about it. And my wife and I sat on the couch one day and prayed, and I just said, God, if there's another way besides chemotherapy, please show me. And I trust you, and thank you for providing for me. And so 2 days later, I got a book that was sent to me from a man in Alaska who was a friend of my dad's. And I'm in Memphis, Tennessee. And this book shows up. I open the package, and it's called God's Way to Ultimate Health. This was a book written by a man named George Malcolmus, who found out he had colon cancer back in the 1970s. And instead of going through surgery, chemo, radiation, all the treatments, he decided to radically change his life. And he adopted a raw food diet and started juicing. And as I'm reading his story, I got so excited. It made so much sense to me. And I learned something that I'd never thought about before, which was that most chronic disease is caused by our diet and lifestyle choices. And I had this epiphany, which was the way you're living is killing you. And I realized, well, if the way I'm living is killing me, if what I've been doing, my daily choices have been contributing to disease over time, then what would happen if I changed the way I live my life? If I change my daily routine, if I really focus all of my energy on health and nutrition and healing? And so I went from from essentially being a powerless victim of cancer, which is what most patients believe they are. They're told there's nothing you did to contribute to your disease, and there's nothing you can do to help yourself except show up for treatment. I went from that state of mind, that mentality, to one of empowerment, where I realized, wait a minute, my life and my health are up to me, and I need to change. And so I got excited about that prospect, and I converted to a raw food diet, all organic fruits and vegetables overnight. And you can change a lot of things in your life. And a lot of things you can change immediately. You can change your diet overnight. You can start exercising today, right? You can make big changes in your life very quickly. And of course, the big changes are important, but what's even more important than that is sustainability, right? Is making the changes and then sticking with it. So I had a pretty strong motivation, right? Cancer is scary, death is scary, suffering is scary, and so those were my big motivations to take control of my life and my health and change. And I also had 3 people that I knew I had to live for. And that was my mom, my dad, and my wife. So I got very clear on my reasons to live. I had a strong will to live. I wanted to live. And I believed I could get well. And I had people that I wanted to live for. And so all those factors combined created this strong foundation for me to stay motivated and to stay determined to take care of myself in a way that I never had before. So I embarked on a raw food adventure and quickly learned that it was better. I felt better. I had more energy. I had more optimism. I was in a better mood just from eating healthier food. And meanwhile, there was a lot of pressure from family members who didn't understand what I had learned and what I was going through to do chemotherapy. And that's where it got difficult, because people in my life who loved me and who cared about me were saying, you have to do what the doctor says. You've got to do chemotherapy. If you don't do it, you're going to die, right? I know somebody who did alternative therapies and they died, right? So all of a sudden, this new sort of factor entered into the picture, which was confusion. And the people that I thought would support my decision were not supportive. Even though they loved me, they thought I was wrong and stubborn and making a huge mistake. So I reluctantly agreed to go see an oncologist, and my wife and I went to this appointment, and it did not go well. We were treated badly. He was rude to us. He was condescending and arrogant, and basically told me, if you don't do chemo, you're insane. And as difficult and scary as that appointment was, it was very important, because it opened my eyes and my wife's eyes to how cold and callous the medical industry can be and how badly patients can be treated by doctors who, maybe he was having a bad day or maybe he just wasn't a very nice guy, but it left an impression on us, and it made me realize that this was not the way I wanted to take care of myself. And I decided I'm going to live or die on my own terms. So I went home and fired up the juicer and kept eating raw fruits and vegetables. And I decided I'm going to overdose on nutrition. If I don't do chemotherapy, I better do something big and radical, and I better take massive action. And so that's what I did. And I found a support system because I knew I needed help. And I found a naturopathic doctor, and then I found an integrative oncologist, and I just assembled a very small team, a very small support system to help me on my cancer journey, on my healing journey. And I also realized that there's no quick fix. There's no magic bullet. There's no miracle cure. There's no lotion or potion that's going to cure cancer. You don't get cancer overnight. It takes years to develop cancer. And once you understand that, you also realize that you can't heal it overnight, right? You didn't get it overnight. You can't heal it overnight. Healing takes time. But the body creates cancer. These are your cells. It's your DNA. And the body can heal it if given the proper nutrients and care. And that's where you have a part to play. If you just sit at home and expect someone else to cure you, to heal you, to save your life without your participation in the process, then you're setting yourself up for failure. But the alternative to that is taking full control of your life, which is what I did, and really taking a step back and examining every aspect of your life to determine what in my life is serving me, what in my life is promoting health and healing and happiness and peace and joy, and what in my life is creating distress, right? That's the unhealthy stress that's making me unhappy, that's making me worried or fearful, or what emotions am I carrying with me from my past that are destructive, like bitterness and anger and resentment toward the people that have hurt me. So I took a really hard look at my life, and you can't do all of this in one sitting, right? This is a progressive realization and a progressive series of steps in radical life change. And the cool thing about the raw food diet, something about it that was unexpected for me, is that once I adopted the raw food diet, about a week or two in, I realized, wow, if I can do this, what else can I do, right? It empowered me in a way that I realized I can change more things. Now that I've got the diet dialed in, like, how can I build on this? So that's when I started really looking inward. I started looking at my attitude and my thoughts and my emotions, and started doing the harder work that takes time. These things take time to change. And so before I get into that, I want to share a couple just important facts. The first is that up to 90% of cancers are caused by three factors: our diet, our lifestyle choices, and our environment. Okay, up to 90%. Only 5 to 10% of cancers are genetic. But most people believe if they get cancer, if there was family history, they think, well, there was nothing I could do about it. I was just going to get it no matter what. And the truth is, there's a whole field of genetics called epigenetics. And in epigenetics, that's the study of gene expression. And your diet and lifestyle and environment play a huge role in how your individual genes express themselves. So your diet can promote cancer-causing genes or can block them, can actually promote genes that suppress cancer growth, that prevent cancer. So I got excited as I learned this, and I realized that the healthiest, longest living people around the world eat a diet that's mostly plants. It's mostly fruits and vegetables, whole grains, nuts and seeds, herbs and spices, and they eat very little processed food, junk food, and fast food. and also very little meat and dairy. In fact, the longest living populations on every continent eat about 95% plant-based. So they're not pure vegans, but they are only eating animal foods a few times a week to a few times a month. That's a big difference between what we're doing in the United States and Europe and Australia and Canada and most of these industrialized nations. We're blessed to have an abundance of food, and we're just overeating. And unfortunately, overeating leads to chronic diseases. And chronic diseases are different than infectious disease because, infectious disease, we all know germs can cause a cold or the flu, right? And you can catch those overnight very quickly. But infectious diseases, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, are number one killers. Take many years to develop. And they're also known as diseases of affluence. That means they're Western diseases. They're diseases that are most prominent in countries that are industrialized because we end up with factory farms and factory produced food, and over time, over decades, we've ate fewer and fewer whole foods, fruits and vegetables, whole grains. So if you think about your ancestors and the way they lived and the way they ate, it's very different than us. Even just several generations ago, they were eating a lot more whole plant food, right? And they weren't eating McDonald's. So that was sort of epiphany number one for me, was getting back to this whole food, plant-based diet and overdosing, like I said, on nutrition, giving my body an abundance of vitamins, minerals, enzymes, antioxidants, and all these wonderful compounds in nature that support your body's ability to operate at an optimal level, that strengthen your immune system, that improve detoxification, that improve your cardiovascular function and your nervous system. Like, all of your systems need special molecules to operate at their highest level, and you get these from plant food. Okay, so the second thing is lifestyle. The number one cause of cancer is smoking. Most of us have heard this. There have been lots of campaigns on television to communicate this to the public since it was formally agreed upon in the 1980s after many decades of the tobacco industry publishing fake studies and bribing doctors to say cigarettes didn't cause cancer. They finally proved they do. And so I want to encourage you, if you're a smoker and you want to prevent cancer, you got to stop smoking. It is the number one cause. The good news is more people have stopped smoking in the last several decades than ever before. So smoking is on the decline, and lung cancer and many other cancers that are caused by smoking are on the decline. That's great. Now, the second leading cause of cancer is one that most people are not aware of, and that's obesity. When you're overweight or obese, your body is in a state of inflammation and immunosuppression. And these are two key ingredients to chronic disease and cancer, is inflammation and immunosuppression. So it's a topic that a lot of people don't want to talk about because it's a sensitive topic, but we just have to tell the truth here. If you're overweight or obese, you can get back down to a healthy body weight by changing just some simple things in your daily routine. Changing your diet, changing your lifestyle, exercising. Being sedentary is also a lifestyle factor that contributes to chronic disease. So all these things play together, right? The poor diet and being sedentary, not exercising, that's contributing to so many of us being overweight, out of shape, obese. Now, another factor, lifestyle factor we should mention is alcohol. Alcohol causes cancer. Even just one drink a day increases your cancer risk. Pharmaceutical drugs, many of them, they tell you right there at the end of the commercial, increase your risk of certain types of cancer. So as you're thinking and reading and learning, and I talk about a lot of this stuff in my first book, which is called Chris Beat Cancer, as you start to uncover the cancer-causing factors in your life, you can systematically remove them. Again, you can't do it all at once, but you can do it over time. And every improvement you make is reducing your risk of getting cancer or increasing your odds of survival. So it's not just one thing that's going to save you or cure you or heal you. It is the confluence of all the changes that you make, right? It's this synergistic compounding effect that happens in your health and in your body as you start making all these changes to your life. So again, the diet is huge, eating a plant-based diet. Number 2 is identifying the lifestyle factors that are contributing to cancer and disease and replacing those with things that contribute to health, right? Exercise is the big one. Exercise turns off cancer-promoting genes. It turns on anti-cancer genes. It improves your mood. It's a known, clinically validated antidepressant. It improves your cardiovascular system. Exercise is incredible. And most of us just don't make time to do it. And so I'm often asked, like, what's the best kind of exercise? Any kind is good. Moving your body is good. Deliberate exercise. So the minimum that we recommend is 30 minutes a day of walking. If you can just do that, it seems like, what could that possibly do, right? Like, how is it walking? Walking is incredible for you. There are so many wonderful benefits. So if you can do that, you are doing it right. Now, anything you want to do above that is great. You could be running, cycling, yoga, CrossFit, Zumba, jazzercise, jiu-jitsu. All movement is good, especially if you can break a sweat, if you can get your heart pumping, and if you can do it outside. It maximizes the benefits if you're getting fresh air and sunshine too. Okay, now the third factor, again, diet, lifestyle, and environment. So environment is a little bit tricky, right? Because there are pollutants in our world, thousands of them, that have been produced by factories that are making goods and goods that we consume every day. And so we're exposed to a lot of invisible and unknown pollutants that over time can poison your body, right, and degrade your health. So you have to be a little bit more deliberate about protecting yourself from environmental pollutants. So switching to an organic diet is a big one. Eating as much organic as possible because that reduces your exposure to toxic pesticides. Filtering your air in your home, filtering your drinking water. Those are simple things that anybody can do. And then looking at your environment and thinking about where you live and where you work. Because if you're living in an industrial area, chances are you're probably breathing a lot of toxic fumes, right? That are just in the ambient air around your home. If you work in a factory or around manufacturing where you're breathing in fumes or soot or dust, right? Chemicals every single day. Over time, they're causing damage to your body. And so you might think about relocating to a different department or a different profession altogether. No job is worth dying over. So again, I would not assume anything around you in that regard is safe, especially if you're trying to heal or prevent cancer. And then there's simple things you can change in your home. The products that you buy that are for your home care, household cleaning products, buying clean, non-toxic brands, buying clean and non-toxic and organic body care and makeup brands like shampoo and lipstick and soaps. Again, every little change you make is reducing your toxic load, and they're all adding up to benefit over time. So that's the strategy, right? Is you want to clean up your diet, improve your lifestyle, and clean up your environment. This is what I did, and this is what every single person that I know who has healed cancer against the odds also did, right? All of the long-term radical remission survivors have this in common, and that is massive radical life change, taking full responsibility for their life and their health and their future. And this does not require special skills. It does not require superpowers. This is something that any person can do. If you want to live, if you believe you can get well, and if you're willing to change your life, you can make a huge impact. Like the choices that you make today create your life tomorrow. And you are sowing seeds of health or disease with your daily choices. And there will be a harvest. So let's reap a harvest of health, right? By sowing seeds of health today and tomorrow and next week. Okay, so let's talk about how your thoughts and beliefs and attitudes play into your health, because stress is a root cause of chronic disease, and it's not well understood. It's sort of this insidious, nebulous concept that doctors don't really understand. They often dismiss it, but most of us know when we're feeling stressed, we're also feeling unhappy. And so I want to help unpack this for you. Here's how stress works. When you're in a state of stress, your body responds by producing excess adrenaline and cortisol. Those are stress hormones. And when your body's producing excess adrenaline and cortisol, those hormones are promoting inflammation, they're interfering with digestion, they are reducing your immune function, and they even mess with your brain chemicals. They affect the way that you think. And so when you're in a state of stress, you can't think clearly or rationally or logically. You're very impulsive and rash. And you can't make a good decision when you're in a state of stress. So there are three sources of stress. And let me just say this. Stress, the most simple way to define stress is negative emotion. Okay? So negative emotions produce a stress response in your body. So the three sources are going to be from your past, in your present, and in the future. Stress from your past is fear, anger, bitterness, and resentment. Stress from your present is attitudes like prejudice, envy, jealousy, and also resentments. Stress from your future is fear, worry, and anxiety. So I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to start with the future. We live in a world right now where we're constantly bombarded with fear-inducing media. And every single day on the news, they're talking about something that you should be worried about, you should be concerned about, whether it's politics or the economy or a war or a virus, right? It's nonstop fear because the news media organizations know that fear is a great way to capture people's attention. And if they capture your attention, then they make more money on ads, okay? That's how they do it. So the problem is that you're taking a daily dose of fear, right? Of fear-inducing information. And what that does is that raises your overall stress. The way to combat this is turning off the news, checking out, getting away from fear-inducing and stress-producing media. And if you consume it, being fully aware that that's the intention of that information and not letting the fear and worry and stress invade your heart. Although it's easier just to turn it off. And when there are things in your life, like cancer, for example, that are causing you fear and worry and anxiety, what I had to do is I had to learn to give my fear to God. Because every single day the fear is creeping in, right? I would get busy working and distracted and feeling good and optimistic and be in a good mood and all this kind of stuff. And then I would remember that I had cancer. And it was just like this wave of fear washing over me. And in those moments, I learned I've got to stop and just say, you know what? Okay, God, I trust you. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm giving you my fear. I'm just going to lay it down. I trust you. Right? I'm not going to let fear, worry, and anxiety about an unknown future steal my joy today. And I did that over and over and over. I mean, multiple times a day, every single day during my most intense season of cancer. So learning to give your fear to God, to cast your cares on Him. Jesus even said, do not worry about tomorrow. Today has enough trouble of its own, right? So this is a mental habit. Right? This is a mental exercise that you have to work on. You can't just fix yourself in one day. You have to constantly remember and remind yourself to give your fear and worry to God. So that's what I did, and that's what I still do, and that's also something that you can do to reduce your fear and worry. And realize that most of the things that you're afraid of and you're worried about happening will never happen. Now, in your present, it's easy to get caught up in social media, right? And emotions like envy and jealousy create unhappiness. When you start comparing yourself to others who have more than you or who you perceive have a better life than you, what that does is it creates discontentment, right? And unhappiness in your heart. And there's an alternative to this. And that's first is catch yourself, right? When you catch yourself, when you're feeling envious and jealous and resentful, you got to catch yourself in that moment and say, wait a minute, okay, I'm feeling these feelings. I'm going to choose not to be jealous of that person, right? Everybody's got their own problems. Nobody's life is perfect, right? And I'm going to compare myself to people who have less and count my blessings. Because there are people all over the world who are suffering, who are starving, who have much more difficult lives than you. And when you turn your focus on the people who have less than you, it reminds you of how good your life is. And so, when I had cancer, I struggled with this a lot, with envy and jealousy and resentment. I was feeling resentment toward anyone who wasn't sick, right? That's the truth. That was my reality, and I was struggling with that. And I had every reason to be angry. I had every reason to be unhappy, to be bitter, to be critical, to be cynical, to be judgmental, right? I have cancer. What are you going to say, right? I can do whatever I want. But I realized that was a recipe for disaster. And so I figured out the way to get myself out of those negative emotional states, and that was through gratitude. And gratitude is the simple practice of counting your blessings. So I could stop in a moment and just say, okay, you know what? I'm really frustrated. I'm really angry that I have to deal with cancer. I don't want this to be my life. But let me just take a moment and think about what in my life is good, right? Cancer, not good. But what is good? I have a wife who loves me. I have a roof over my head. I have access to food. I can see, I can hear, I can get out of bed, I can feed myself, right? I can go to work. I have enough money to pay my next set of bills. I can do that all day, right? I can just start counting my blessings. And as I do that, my attitude changes, right? Just in a few moments of reminding myself how good my life is. And my secret gratitude hack is really just one thought, and it's this. Right now, there's someone dying in the hospital who would give anything to trade places with you. All I have to do is remind myself of that. And I'm like, wow, you know what? My life's great, right? My problems are so insignificant compared to the problems of other people. And there are people who would love to have my problems right now. So that is a practice, again, like giving your fear and worry to God, right? Where you have to catch yourself in those moments of frustration and resentment and feeling ungrateful or jealous or bitter, and just decide to think differently, right? Deciding to think positively about a situation instead of negatively, right? And that sometimes it takes a little more effort. You have to look for the positive in a situation, or you have to imagine that something good will come out of it when you can't see any positive in that moment. You have to imagine and believe something good's going to come out of this. I don't know what it's going to be, but I trust that God is going to work this for my good, right? So, okay, we're going one step farther into your past. Negative emotions from your past are bitterness, resentment, anger, and unforgiveness. And these are some of the most powerful and destructive emotions, period. And when you're carrying anger and bitterness toward people who've hurt you, what that does is it creates a burden on your nervous system. It creates a burden on your subconscious mind, because your conscious mind is easily distracted, right? Your conscious mind is watching television or working or on social media, right? But your subconscious mind is not distracted. Your subconscious knows about all of your problems all the time. It knows about all of the unresolved emotional conflicts that you've had in your past. And the more unresolved issues that you're carrying with you, the more the burden on your subconscious and the higher your stress, day-to-day stress is, right? This sort of lingering chronic stress gets elevated the more unresolved conflicts you have in life. So you got to clear that stuff out. And the way you do it is through forgiveness. I made a decision to forgive every person who has ever hurt me in life. Can't do it all in one sitting or in one moment, but the way you do it is you just sit quietly and you think through your life. You can close your eyes and do it in a prayerful kind of meditative state. It doesn't matter, but you just think through your life and you open up that filing cabinet in your mind where you've stored all the painful memories that you don't want to revisit. And one by one, it's like you pull them out, you revisit the memory, the person who hurt you, what they did, and then in that moment, you just say, okay, God, you know what they did. You know how I feel about it. I'm still mad. I'm still angry. I'm still hurt. I'm still frustrated. I still feel the pain. But I'm choosing to forgive this person, and I'm giving it to you, and I'm letting it go. They're all yours, right? I'm releasing this to you. I'm not holding on for justice anymore, right? You can deal with them. And forgive me for holding on to this anger for so long. And the final request is I'm asking you to bless them. I'm asking you to bless the person who has hurt me. And that sounds hard, and believe me, I know you don't want to do it. I know what you want is you want a lightning bolt, right? To strike them dead. That's what you want to happen. But if you pray for your enemies, Jesus said, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. And so if you make the choice to not only forgive, which is a decision, it's not an emotion, it's not a feeling, but you make the decision to forgive, and then you ask God to bless the people who've hurt you, you're just giving full access for God to come in and heal your heart. And that's when your feelings change, right? They don't change before forgiveness, they change after. And if you're waiting to forgive until you feel like it, you may wait your entire life and never get there. So I want to encourage you to forgive every person who has ever hurt you. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying you can do it because I've done it. And so, each day or every few days I would sit down and I would just think, okay, who do I need to forgive, right? Who do I need to forgive? And I would think about second grade, third grade, my friends, family members, strangers, coworkers, random people on the street, right? Who has hurt me? Who's hurt my feelings, right? And one by one, I just worked through them all and forgave them all. And it's important to remember that forgiveness is a decision for life, right? It's like a healthy diet. It only works if you stick with it. So when you forgive someone, you're saying, I'm letting this go for life. I'm not saying it was okay. It definitely wasn't, but I'm choosing to let it go. And so if the feelings start to creep back in, you have to remember and catch yourself and say, hey, you know what? No, I forgave them. I'm not going to let this bitterness take over my heart and my mind, right? I forgave them. It's done. So that's the practice. And I got to the point where I would just rack my brains until I realized there's no one left, right? And so that's what I want to encourage you to do is forgive every person in your life until there is no one left, right? And you will find so much freedom from the prison of pain that you've been in for so many years. Because when people hurt you, they cause you pain, but when you don't forgive, you entrap yourself in a prison of pain. And the key's on the inside of the door. It's forgiveness. You can let yourself out. We've all heard that expression, oh, that person, they've got a lot of baggage. What is baggage? Baggage is emotional pain, right? It's pain from your past. And the analogy baggage is perfect because baggage is something you carry, right? But it's also something you can put down. And forgiveness is putting down the bags, right? It's like a heavy backpack full of bricks, right? Just like slip out of that thing and drop it to the ground and walk away. You'll find so much freedom and joy, and you'll feel so much lighter, and you'll have so much peace in your life when you forgive the people who've hurt you. So there's a lot you can do to help yourself. There's so much you can do to change your life with your diet, with your lifestyle choices, by changing and improving your environment. Like, all of these things add up and all these things help. But if you don't address the stress in your life, if you don't learn how to forgive and decide to forgive, and then be quick to forgive people when they cut you off in traffic or give you the bird, right? Or they're mean to you on the internet, right? If you don't be quick to forgive, then you're still going to carry those burdens and that pain. If you don't learn how to give your fear and worry to God and choose not to live in fear or be manipulated by fear, if you don't learn how to count your blessings and practice gratitude, then you're constantly going to be plagued by unhappiness and feelings that you're not as good as others, or that you don't have as much as others, or feelings that you deserve more, or that you're entitled, or that you're a victim. And so these are things you have to actively work on, right? You have to figure out, okay, who am I? What do I think? How am I acting? How am I reacting? How am I behaving? And how can I change? So there's work to do to improve. You can do it. If I can do it, you can definitely do it. I have no special skills, okay? All I had was a terrible diagnosis and a strong will to live. And that set me on a completely different path, different life path than I ever expected I'd be on, and got me to where I am today, 18 years later, alive, thriving, in the best health and the best shape of my life. And it's been such a privilege and an honor to share my story with you and be a part of this Faith and Gratitude event. And the Faith and Gratitude folks have an incredible resource guide. You definitely need to get a hold of this. It's free. Again, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in, for letting me share a little bit of what I've learned, what cancer taught me, and how cancer changed my life, and how my trust and faith in God led me through this process. You can find me at chrisbeatcancer.com. It's a big resource online for cancer patients and anybody who's into health and wellness and prevention. So again, thank you so much for tuning in and for watching.
Thank you for joining us today. You can learn more about Chris and the programs he offers at chrisbeatcancer.com. At this time, we would especially like to thank our sponsors for making this speaker series possible. For more education and empowerment during your journey to better health, visit us at faithandgratitude.org.